Okay, good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Facebook and YouTube live session sponsored by Startup Academy Pakistan. My name is Dr. Bilal Mirza, and I'm really honored once again that Professor Rajneesh is with me. Professor Rajneesh is Professor of International Business Regulation at Reading Business School, University of Reading, UK. Professor, very warm welcome to you once again. It's always a
Thank
pleasure
you.
to have you online.
It's my pleasure to be here anytime at all.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. So today our topic of discussion is in the backdrop of the continuous destruction which is going on due to COVID-19.
Mm.
And it actually, I think, got exaggerated or got its heat when on April 20th, the oil price actually went into the negative territory.
Yeah.
And precisely it went to 37, minus $37, minus $37.63. And later on, we have seen the stock exchange were also going in the slumps, in the new lows. Employment is also touching at the new highs across the globe. And very recently, I was reading an article where it was cited by the IMF director. It was mentioned that she has said that the current scenario can lead the recession either equivalent to the Great Recession or even harder, not less than that. Where
Mm.
do you see the things going on at international level?
Well, I think that right now it's a lot of guesswork because we don't know what the behavior of the virus is going to be. As you can see, there was in the beginning of April, people were saying that this virus will become less virulent once it becomes warm, and of course, as
Yeah,
you know, Pakistan and India, where temperatures go to 40s in the 40s, so you should have, in principle, seen a decline in the
going
spread
down,
of the
yeah.
virus, but we're seeing the opposite. We don't know how it is actually properly, fully transmitted. We don't understand that. And we are seeing now a growth, across Africa and Asia in countries that did not have any effect of the virus. So we don't know really when this is going to peak. And to some extent, when last time I was on the show, I mentioned the Spanish flu virus of 1918, and that inexplicably disappeared after 6 months. Nothing, there was no intervention, and it just died on its own. So, if it's going to continue like this, if it's going to continue to be virulent, and we don't know how it's going to behave, we're kind of guessing whether this will naturally die out, as Trump keeps saying, who has got no basis to say so, or it's going to be around for a long time, or we are going to wait for a vaccination. So, if the vaccination, the idea that we will have a vaccination will come about. We are looking at the earliest will be summer of 2021. That is to say, we are more than 1 year away from a vaccination. And that means that we are really 1.5 years away from some level of lockdown. So December 2021. So if this is true, that we are going to reduce economic activity for 15 months, then of course this is going to be a profound effect on the world economy. And but we are guessing. All of these are guesses right now, since we don't know anything about this virus. We are finding new things out every day.
So, Professor, we are going to discuss about the restructuring, the strategic restructuring at international level.
Mm.
When you talk about this restructuring, actually, what do you mean by that? I just want to know that from the layman's perspective, because there are a lot of people who may not
Yeah,
have economics background or business background.
yeah. So I think there are two main effects that have happened because of the COVID-19. I would call it a shock. It's a COVID-19 shock, and shock has first of all disrupted supply chains for in part because of logistics problems and transportation problems, and in part because governments have placed export restraints on certain goods and processes. And then, of course, the second part is the labor itself is affected. So it's a very important component of all production, of all services, are people. When people are in lockdown and are quarantined, they are not working, and this has a significant effect across all kinds of activities. So now, as we are trying to reduce the lockdown, countries are talking about reducing the lockdown. Then firms have to think about different ways to meet the customer demand. I mean, I think about the aircraft industry. The airlines, if they're going to leave 1 meter or 2 meters between each passenger, 350 people should get on a plane. Now only 100 will get on a plane.
Yeah.
And it means that the break-even point for airlines is going to be 3 times higher. That is to say, the ticket price will be 3 times.
3 times higher. Exactly.
And then the same thing with all supplies. So there might be a bumper crop of wheat in South Asia this year. Not might be, there is going to be a bumper crop of wheat and rice, and there will be an overflow. But the point is that it has to get to the markets, has to get to the customers. So, and then of course it gets the people who are manufacturing, let's say, who are growing, who are the other industries that are dependent, have a knock-on effect. So there's a lot of discussion about how to reorganize these supply chains in such a way that we overcome these bottlenecks, and to what extent we can still keep functioning as a society. So that's where it is strategic. The word strategic means long-term perspective. It implies that we're thinking about changing the long-term perspective.
And in this context, long term, maybe a decade or so.
Well, again, we don't know the effect of the virus, so I would say that at least for 3 years. Longer than 3 years, we really can't go around making any useful prediction.
I see.
We leave that to magicians and people who have direct connection with God. But unfortunately, I'm not amongst that number.
Do you see any differences among the structural shifts across developing and developed countries?
Yes, there is a big shift, a big difference between the two, because the developing countries, first of all, have a very large part of the economy is informal. Uh, as
Informal economy. Yes.
70% of the workers in uh, in India, Pakistan, or Bangladesh, more than 70% are in the informal sector. So they're working on a day wage, or they're not working at all. As we already see this problem rising, as you know, so that's one of the big issues. Secondly, we are too dependent upon low value added activities,
Yeah.
commodities. As you know, I mentioned rice and wheat because these are very important industries, not only for the local population, but source of income. So when things are stuck in the pipeline and there are new restrictions on exports or imports, it will have a direct effect on prices, and it will have a direct effect on the employment and therefore the survival of such a large percentage of the population. Whereas in the developed countries, the informal economy is less than 20%. It's a very small aspect of the economy, and they are adding value at a higher level. They also have more money in the bank. The central bank can spend $1 trillion or $500 billion to prop up the economy. Most developing countries can't afford to prop up the economy for more than 1 month. Even 1 month is actually a great
Yeah.
achievement.
Yeah. 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 Probably you may have seen the news that Pakistan has given one of the biggest social safety nets ever in the history,
Yes,
$8 billion.
yes.
And this is something which cannot be continued for a very long time.
No, no, no,
And
no.
I think India has not done that even, India and
Yeah.
Bangladesh. It's only
Mm,
Pakistan which has provided this kind of support to the poor elite people.
yeah, that is a problem. I mean, where is the money going to come from? And as you say, it can be done once for 1 month. It might be done for 2 months,
That's
but
it.
that's it.
Yeah.
After that, really, I can't see where it's going. So it's a short-term problem, but also a long-term problem because we can't, and also You have to borrow the money, as it is. Pakistan has got a debt problem, and if there's no production going on, then the loans are well, more money has to be borrowed. This is not a good outcome at all. So yeah, the issues are very big, Bilal. I can't see. Uh, I really, I mean, it's as you say, the strategic implications are very high, but the options to act, unfortunately, all require money.
Yes. I think even the grave situation is getting in the Middle East, where the oil prices have gone to the drain, and probably they'll not be able to meet their GDP levels or their expenses.
Yes, but I really don't feel sorry for the Middle Eastern economies.
Same here.
They've
Yeah.
they're going around buying hotels in London and
Yeah.
other things. So I really feel that their circumstance. What it does bother me is that there are 18 million people from as diverse as
South
Philippines,
Asia.
yeah,
Yeah.
Sri Lanka, whatever, working there, and these workers are now going to be shipped home
Yeah.
to join this problem that we already have. So
Yes. Labor may
that
come
is,
back.
yeah, but the oil price is not that bad. I mean, the thing that the one of the things people don't realize that in the Middle East, to extract a barrel of oil, the cost is less than $1. I mean, in that range. It's the oil reserves are so plentiful and they're so near the ground. The cost of extraction is about $1. So anything after $1, they make money. But when you go to the North Sea, which is what the Dutch, the British, the Norwegians depend upon,
Norwegian.
extraction is about $15 a barrel.
Wow.
So for them, and this is we're not taking into account overheads and everything else, but so for them, at this point in time, they are not making any money from oil. They're producing at cost. The Saudis and the people and the Middle East, they are still making money. So they're not that badly off. The price that you mentioned, the minus $37, that was the delivery in May price, which was
Yeah.
just a few days before, and also
Over
automated
Texas.
trading. Also, the problem
Yeah.
automated trading, because computer programs see opportunity and they buy, even if there is nowhere to store it.
Mhm.
So I think, yeah, the problem, the strategic problem will be different for different countries. I don't think we can compare the problems that the developing countries will have with either the Middle East or in Europe and America. It's a very different set of problems.
In the UK, are they trying to map out the industries which may give a breather for the economy in next 3 years? Have they done that exercise?
No, they haven't done that exercise. I have not heard about them. They doing that exercise. They are too busy recovering from the mistake of not taking it seriously.
Yeah.
You may have seen, Bilal, the very brilliant interview of our wonderful Prime Minister, who came on TV in early March, saying he went to the hospital and he shook hands with lots of patients, including coronavirus patients.
My God.
That there was nothing to worry about. This was just a flu. And then, of course, 3 weeks later, he was in
He
hospital
got it. Yeah.
with the virus. So I think that response was the response of the government. There was nothing to plan for, so they did not make any plans. Now they are planning, but I don't hear anything from my colleagues that they are utilizing any experts to have any conversation about this. Um, I haven't heard from anybody in my circle who has been asked for advice.
What about India? Because some things are happening here in Pakistan. We're trying to build up. How do I say? The priority areas, priority industries, and I think construction is given the most priority, and the
Yeah,
manufacturing units, export-oriented units, which are going to export,
yeah.
they're given the priority.
I think the priority right now in the region is going to be on getting the informal economy going. You can't, as you said, it's possible to give people some handouts, in the short run, but the priority is to get the 50% of the economy that more than that, is dependent upon these day laborers. So farming, because this is a season for this is a key agricultural season. You need to get those workers back, and also the construction industry, as you said, which employs a lot of people. I
Yes,
see Shireen is online, complete stranger to me. Um,
we
um,
do.
yes, no, Shireen.
So she's asking a very
Yes.
pertinent question. Would you say that if most of the trade is going online, including service industry, the oil industry would be impacted and therefore oil price is cheaper since lesser demand? So is it the oil industry which is going to get impacted and then the ripple effect may come to the other industries?
You know, for the countries that are dependent upon on oil imports, there is an advantage of the falling prices, which will feed into other industries. But the thing is that demand has disappeared. So one of the key industries that depends upon that is affected by petroleum prices is the plastics industry. And right now the demand for plastics is to the ground. So I think the kind of I don't think it's going to make that much difference in terms of because deliveries are down, and every which way the demand is down. So I don't see that really give lowering prices. Prices will fall a little bit, but not enough. Not enough, because also businessmen are interested in more money. If the demand goes up, they raise the price regardless of what the cost
Yes.
of the input is.
So probably they have a potential to rebound back to reasonable level, probably 50 plus.
No,
No,
no, no, no
not in
chance.
India.
I can put money on this. It's no chance it will
But
go
I saw
$30.
today's price is $34, I think. At
Yeah, yeah. It will stay around this area for the foreseeable future. It will not go above. If goes above 35, I'll be very surprised. There's no reason for it, because um the industrial production has gone so far down, and I don't see that happening. And countries that used to depend upon petroleum for generating electricity, gas, and so forth, are finding that the demand is down. I saw the data recently of electricity consumption, and I noticed that it's about 45% less compared to last year. Uh,
in the UK.
no, in this was in India. So the data for India, 45% down. So I would say that, and of course, there have been good rains. So all the hydroelectric stations are fully able to meet the demand. So I don't see this bounding back to, even if it goes to, because electricity is one of the best indicators of industrial production.
Yeah, yeah.
And we are not going to see that return to anything, maybe 80% of previous by the end of the year.
The story is probably different here in Pakistan because those independent power producers have strange kind of agreements with the government. Even if they are not producing, they'll be charging capacity costs. So if the
Mm.
machines are off, they'll be still charging money to the government. And this is
Well,
something which the government is trying to tackle now these days, and they're trying to probably follow them legally as well. Let's
yeah,
see.
yeah.
So there's also a question from Mr. Tahir. He's asking the sectoral differences. So not the regional differences, but the sectoral difference. Let's talk about South Asia. Sectoral differences, especially he's talking, I think, about manufacturing units. Do you think manufacturing units can have a certain edge in this region, South Asian region, because they may be exporting and have, for example, in India, probably the lower electricity prices may give
Mm.
them some margin, better margins, probably.
Well, the problem is demand has collapsed. So when you look at the one of the largest industries in the three, between the Bangladesh, India, and Pakistan is
Textile.
textile, exactly, and the textile market has almost collapsed. All the companies are canceling their contracts, and they're dumping. Really, they're dumping. Nobody's buying, mainly because most of the shops are closed and people are. So I think that's one of the largest going to be. We are seeing the short term. It's a very big problem. I mean, in a country like Bangladesh, perhaps even more, because it's the most important sector. The industry that would benefit from this period will be the food industry. I think that exports, the demand for people have gone back to basics. It's Maslow's pyramid. They have gone back to basics. People
Yeah.
are stocking up on food, and as if there's a big flood coming, and in a way that's
Doing
kind
panic buying.
of people are stocking up on things that they would not
Is it
normally.
coming down in the UK or is it going up?
Sorry.
Is it calming down? This panic buying is calmed now, or
Well, people are still buying in larger quantities than they used to, and I think that will continue for a while. That you'll maintain a certain
three,
stock of.
3 months? Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, so I think that's one of the industry that will benefit. The auto components industry, I think the demand for automobiles has gone to zero,
Yeah.
and that has been an important industry in Pakistan as well as in India. Um, so auto components has crashed to some extent.
There's a very strange kind of phenomena here in Pakistan about, related to automobiles. The demand has gone to the ground, but the
Mm.
prices are increased every other day. So they are, I think in the last 6 weeks, Honda Pakistan has announced the price changes twice. So they have increased the price twice in the last 6 weeks. Although it has something to do with the dollar price,
Mm.
but still they are doing it. There's no demand, but yet they're increasing the prices.
Yeah, I think the Japanese are. Yeah, this is a very strange time. Um, I have not worked that out, and tomorrow I'm teaching. And right now I'm supposed to be in Tokyo this month. I'm teaching at Rekkyo University.
I
I
see.
was supposed to have been there since last week, but I'm
We are going to teach online
yes,
now.
I'm teaching online. So let me ask this question tomorrow morning from my students.
What's
um,
going on?
what
Yeah.
is going on? Because I also saw that the Japanese government is putting pressure because India has stopped all the factories, and of course the largest Suzuki factory is in India, and they're pressuring the government to open the factory. But I'm not sure whether this is. So I think in a way the Japanese is a very Japan is a very well organized country, so they're able to keep producing and everybody will respect the distances and the physical distances
Yeah.
necessary. I don't think that it is a it is a culturally viable option in South Asia to persuade people to keep always at 1 meter distance. So I'm feeling that
Kind of important.
starting the factories is going to take time. Why they're increasing the prices does not make any sense. But I will inquire.
They're increasing the prices for the cars which are just in the showrooms, in the warehouses.
Hmm.
So which had been assembled already on the previous dollar prices. So they have increased the prices for those cars as well.
Okay, that's
Pakistan automobile sector.
interesting.
I think I would love to have a Japanese student working on Pakistan automobile sector. That would be
I
great
think
study.
so.
So,
That's a yeah.
is it all bad about this global restructuring, or do you think this can help, especially this region, the countries in this region, to reset their economic and business standards, business efficiencies, and focus more on the export oriented products, on technology transfer, technology development, capacity building, so that they can actually utilize. I also see some signs of hope in the end of the tunnel from this perspective.
Hmm.
What's your take on it?
Um, I think that there is always a silver lining in everything, and certainly one of the interesting things is the rapidity with which many places have switched their production from, let's say, textiles, clothing to to
Health,
health, to
medical equipment.
PPE, yeah, to supplies.
Yeah,
I was reading about in Kenya that one of the textile companies is within 2 weeks of the in
in
beginning of
Pakistan
March,
as well.
they switched to 30,000 gowns, medical gowns a day, and they are
Yeah,
exporting and for domestic use. And you can see here, I mean, frankly, with a large industry, the other key industry, one of the key industries in Pakistan has been the surgical instruments.
yeah. Sports.
And certainly, this is the time to develop these competences, uh, and to, but it requires some effort from the state, because one of the problems that exporting
Very
needs
right.
to
Yeah,
is the meeting the health standards and helping them to how to sterilize the gowns and so forth. They need help with this. It's not, there is a different standard required for PPE, for what protective, personal protective equipment, and this is
yeah.
a very easy industry for our small sectors to get into. But it does require a higher hygiene standard, a higher safety, how greater testing, and so forth. And then would be a great opportunity, I think.
That's good to hear because I have seen the news coming up that some of the textile companies have switched from
Mhm.
traditional textile, traditional clothing to PPE
Mm.
filters and the masks, for
Yeah.
example. They're trying to build up the capacities for N95, although they
Mhm.
have limited capacity, but at the mass level, they're trying to target that particular segment as well. So
Yeah.
that's a good news. What about the other sectors? I mean, textile is because it's a major sector here in India, Pakistan, Bangladesh. But I think there are some other sectors which may also get a breather from this 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 quarantine period, this non-activity period. For
Yeah.
example, travel.
Sorry, the last word.
Domestic travel. For example, probably domestic travel. You think so? Or food? Probably.
Probably people are. I don't know how much what the effect is in Pakistan, but in many countries, travel has completely collapsed. People are afraid of traveling to go anywhere else because they are, concerned about the hygiene of wherever they go. And one of the reasons to travel is, to be in a different place, and to have new experiences. But nobody wants the experience of coming, or that they might go outside the. So I would say that there is a possible potential for domestic tourism to rise, but how much does the government want to allow the movement from within the country? Because I think one of the while we are having this problem, the weather is improving, and people think, oh, the weather is improving. Let me go, for the weekend somewhere else. And once people start doing that, it's a slippery slope. We're expecting the mortality rate to continue to rise with the movement. So I don't know if that's something we can do in the short run. Maybe towards the end of the year, once it has come under control. So right now you have both, in South Asia, you have rising death rates. And once it plateaus, certainly there will be a market for domestic travel.
Mhm.
Increasingly, people wanting to go away and start going somewhere. I mean, I'm dreaming of going to the airport. Um, it's the first time in many years I have not. I'm normally at the airport every week or every 2 weeks,
Yeah.
and now been 3 months, and I just want to go to Heathrow, just to touch the ground. Um,
Sit in the plane, take off.
sit in the
I was just
lounge, have a
talking.
coffee.
I was talking to one of my uncles who is living in Thailand. He's living in Bangkok yesterday, and I was just talking about the economic activity and the cases which are being coming up in the country. And he told that the cases are not that grave here in Thailand. The economic activity is restricted, but somehow, very strangely, the emergence of the cases, COVID-19 cases, are just below, I think, in the region,
Yeah,
yeah, in Southeast Asia.
yeah,
So
yeah.
Thailand has the lowest number of cases somehow.
It's part of it is the again social differences. It's there are the kind of idea of space in Thailand is very different from Desi
India,
idea
you're
of
right.
space.
Yeah, or Pakistan. True, very right.
It is very true that people are not as expressive in the same way that you would
I've noticed that. Yeah.
yeah, and it's
In Hong
also
Kong,
yeah,
in Singapore, in Thailand, it's totally different. Yes.
yeah, yeah. It's hard to yeah, it's inexplicable, but I think that I'm not wouldn't expect it to stay low. I have to say the see, once you take away Bangkok, the country Thailand is largely rural. It's
Yes.
that, and that's also an advantage. In rural areas, there will be, by definition, more social distancing, and so I think that is, if they are
Because
able
of
to
open
control it in
spaces.
Bangkok, they can control it in the country. And I think, by extension, also, this is why, in a way, South Asia unfortunately has too many big cities, which are kind of also a bottleneck.
I see. I see.
Yeah.
I think it's a good discussion. There are some questions coming on from Anjum Freed. What type of potential research should be done as earlier, as it seems to be type of economic bubble collapse of 2008. So he's referring to the credit crunch, which came in 2008, and I think there was a research
Right.
probably by Goldman Sachs.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh, yeah, but that was purely on the economic side. This is a health kind of pandemic, and probably
Mm.
Goldman Sachs may not have a prior research
Well,
on this.
yeah. I mean, the thing to remember is that it's not. This is not a black swan event. I think I may
Yeah,
have mentioned that before. People think that this is so. This is actually something that it punctuates our lives. These type of shocks. We have we only are talking about this now, but we have had previous epidemics which may not have been global, but there was a concern
exactly.
about
SARS,
Ebola a few
MERS,
years ago. There was
Ebola,
SARS.
yeah,
There's Lassa fever. There was something, every 5 or 10 years, such a thing.
Congo
Yeah,
virus.
yes. So they've had these viruses, and so this is the first time it spread, significantly outside one region, and we are not we're going to see this again. So certainly, it's a very good question. I would say that how do we deal with shocks? It's not about how we deal with COVID-19, but the opportunity here is to understand the preparation for shocks. And just before this call, I was reading an article about the importance of robustness and resilience, and these are two words that are very simple, similar, but they're different. When
Different.
you have a resilient organization, it will recover from a shock. So a robust organization will not experience a shock.
I see.
And shocks are happening always, in society, to individuals, and so on. And when you have a robust structure, you have multiple supply chains, multiple routes within the supply. You don't have over dependence on any one actor. You're always having multiple actors, multiple opportunities. And I think that from a business perspective, I think this is very interesting to understand that what is the optimal efficient backup system that you must have. We have you have an inverter in your house as a backup. So this
Yeah.
is a robust system. As soon as the light goes out, you have 3 seconds of darkness, and you have your generator, you have your inverter, and should be the same for companies. Yes, there will be a shock, but how to be resilient, how to recover from the shock, and not at a huge cost, at the how to minimize that cost of recovery, and to think about the future, that we're going to have more shocks like this, and firms, organizations need to be able to weather the shock and not die out, and not be over
Very right.
dependent on a few people.
Very right. Good question, Anjum. What three suggestions would you give to small enterprises, small businesses working in Pakistan or India? The quick, easy, simple, convenient advices that they should follow, keeping in view this pandemic.
That's a very difficult question. I mean, the small and medium enterprises, the small,
Let's talk about small enterprises,
yes,
small businesses.
yeah, small businesses have, they have the main advantage of small business is flexibility. That is, you can change direction at a very,
Very right.
yeah, very quickly. But the
Yes, go ahead.
disadvantage is size. There are no resources, and finding a way to. So I think that here is the really the opportunity is repositioning, is fine, and this is where the government also comes in. Is not to is to actively seek ways to because very often the small companies will know how to change direction. They can see a new opportunity, moving to PPE, making masks, making gowns. They know they can do this. The equipment is there, the people are there, the skills are there, but there is a certain amount of cost to making that switch, to
Mhm.
learning, getting the approval of the certification agencies and so forth. This is where the state comes in, saying, no, no, we will help you to implement the protocols that are necessary for this, and to make sure that they are meeting the standard. There was I'm coming back to PPE because it's such a simple example, but you can see this happening across the board, that there are opportunities to meet certain kinds of demand, because now, for instance, transportation costs, and there are delays in transportation, which are bigger than the transportation cost problem. So, how do you now package, let's say, mangoes or fruit, or things that are being exported before by air, but now they are perishable? How do you now find make them more resilient for transportation?
Very
Um,
right.
these are very key opportunities. Processing the food so that you can meet a slightly higher standard, and so on. I just want to tell a story that there was this. The British government ordered uh, masks and gowns and so forth from Turkey. This is a company that until February was only making clothing, and they bought 400,000 gowns, and when they brought it to England, they realized that they did not meet the medical standard. They were not of the medical quality. So this plane load of stuff they had brought at a good price, but what had
Had
not
to go
happened,
back.
this small thing, was meeting the standard. And this is where the government comes in. This is where the state comes. This is where universities come in to
Yes.
help people to make this. But asking, what do you need?
Excellent. I think this sums up very well what should be done at the small business levels. Thank you so much, Professor Rajneesh. It is a good discussion, and I think you've covered almost some of the points which were raised by our viewers. And probably we can end this session. I'm trying to find out some other questions we may have. Probably he's talking about the economic degradation due to biological. What was the chance of forecasting of happening such type of economic degradation due to the biological bomb? That's
That
that's a
forecasting, I will. It's a good question. We would love to forecast these things. Everybody would love to forecast, but I'm going to help to close this by telling an anecdote. Many years ago, I met a very senior researcher when I was at Merit, actually, and he had come with Luke and I, Luke Sute, who was the director at the time, myself, and this gentleman, who I won't name, very important person from South America. And I said something about how do you forecast the growth in your country? And he looked at me and he said, "You know the first rule of forecasting?" I said, "No." He said, "Never forecast." I said, "Okay." He said, "You know the second rule of forecasting?" I said,
Follow
"No."
the first.
He said, "If you must forecast, never forecast the future." Then he
Right,
said, "The third rule of forecasting." I said, again, I thought, no. He said, "If you forecasters are always wrong.
right.
So
And in
don't
this
forecast.
scenario,
Follow
probably
that
they'll
rule
be
of
very
one."
wrong.
Yes.
Yeah,
So it would be nice to be able to predict these things, but the rule of forecasting, never forecast.
never forecast. Thank you so much, Professor Rajneesh. Very splendid discussion. And hopefully, we'll have you again, once again, in this current time period. I don't know when this is going to end, but thanks to
Yes,
the
yes.
technology that we can connect this way and have some fruitful discussion.
I look forward to that.
Thank you so much. Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, viewers, for watching us and asking the questions.
Thank you.